All right, good morning, everybody. I wanted to do a brief neti pot demonstration for you. So the basic principle is that when someone is suffering from allergies, sinusitis, colds, the flu, a lot of times there's a lot of gunky stuff up in the sinuses that contributes to irritation of the sinuses. And a neti pot is a wonderful way of being able to get the stuff from here out and down the drain. And this is also something that occasionally, when you're a resident and you're going through training, sometimes if you're in on a surgery, you don't really want to take a lot of medications that make you feel kind of lightheaded, and also you can't exactly take the surgery mask off, blow your nose, and then get back to the surgery. So I found this to be very helpful if I had any issues with the allergies, to be able to do one of these things right before the surgery, and then all of this was clear, at least for a while. Also, I've had patients that occasionally have had sinusitis or sinus infections that were able to cure themselves using this rinse kit. So one of the principles of this is that when you use a sinus rinse kit, a neti pot, or any of the similar varieties that are available, there's a few squeeze bottles of pre-made solutions and stuff as well that are available. That one of the key points of it is, if you're doing this on a regular basis, to make sure you sterilize your equipment. So please, whatever you choose to do, follow the directions carefully from whatever system that you decide to play with. These kits are available at most grocery stores. A lot of pharmacies have a wall dedicated to them. So they're pretty cheap. They're available pretty much anywhere. And let's get on with the demonstration. So this is mine. It's backwards on your thing, but it says Rojo. I've got my very own personal one. And so I've also got a couple other here for demonstration, just to show that these things come in different shapes, varieties, and sizes. So here's another variety. And if you like ceramic, there's another variety here as well. And so obviously ones that are ceramic tend to last a bit longer. Just don't drop it, from personal experience. All right, so here I have a sinus rinse kit packet, and these packets are designed to have salt and bicarb that is exactly matched for the common sizes of neti pots that are available. So we're going to take that and put the salt bicarb mixture into the neti pot. Another key point is you can also use regular salt as well. The key point is that whatever you use, you want your solution to end up being the same saltiness approximately as your own tears, so that there is no stinging of the sinuses. Next point is, when you're looking at the water that you're using with it, you want this water to be brought up to body temperature. And so some people will use distilled water and fill up the neti pot and put it in the microwave. Some people will boil water and cool it down. Whatever you do, the key point is the water temperature needs to be comfortable, and obviously not burning yourself with that. So I'm going to take the water and add it to the neti pot. Another point is that some places the water quality is way worse than others, and also the things that might be in the sink. Flint, Michigan's water quality and such is going to be very different than somebody who lives in a city, for example. People that live in the cities, often the water is very chlorinated and has other chemicals in there that are irritating to the sinuses. So especially for beginners and folks that I'm counseling in the clinic, that's the other reason I recommend the distilled water, because you can get a big jug of distilled water for about $1, and it's cheap and it's absolutely pure. It's got no chemical contamination whatsoever. All right, so I happen to be in a bathroom, so you don't see it off the camera here, but there is a sink below there. So what you do is you take your neti pot and you just put it up to the nostril there, and you tilt the head sideways. And as you noticed, I stirred the water to make it thoroughly clear. And so what the water is doing right now is it's going up and down and out the other side. And so you want to do about half of the fluid in one nostril. Generally, we'll stop and blow the nose for a moment to get, the stuff that's come out already on that side. And then very simple, you take your head and go in the other direction. And here we go. Key points to this are you want to make sure that your head is tilted forward so that there's a good flow of water from one side to the other. Sometimes when people do this, they accidentally tilt the head backwards, and as you can see, the water stops flowing and it starts going down the back of the throat, which is not a good thing with that. All right, so now we got the other half. Sorry, I got through there. And stirring the water thoroughly beforehand makes a great difference as well, because if the water is not thoroughly mixed up, then sometimes when you get to the very end, the concentration of the solution is a little bit more concentrated than at the very beginning. So that's another key point, is when you're doing these rinses, make sure that it's a kit that's personal to you and that you sterilize it after the uses. Also, make sure that the water is pure water and has nothing contamination with it. And make sure that you do something to make sure the water is thoroughly stirred up, because if the water is got hot spots and cold spots and more concentration or less concentration in any particular area, then it's going to be an uncomfortable experience, and you want this to be a very comfortable experience. Both adults as well as children can use these. Child size are usually about half the size of a regular adult, or you can use the adult and just use about half of the solution. Generally speaking, using it with children, if they're young enough, you just have them put their head in the position, and then the mother or the father will, or relative, whoever is taking care of the child, will put it into the correct position and pretty much teach the child how to do it, kind of in the same way that you teach children how to brush your teeth and so forth. Another thing that occasionally will happen with these is occasionally if your head's not in quite the right position, or if there's a blockage, sometimes people get like a little bit of fluid that kind of sits in there, and then they'll move their head in some way or another later, and that fluid will just kind of happen to tilt out, and you get like a little extra waterfall, so to say, at a surprise time. That's usually something that happens in the beginning, and once you get used to using the technique and everything, then that usually goes away. All right, so that's about all I got to say on the lovely neti pots. This is a great sinus technique. Usually if people are having allergies, maybe do it once a day, depending on what's going on, maybe twice a day for a short time. And you want to maybe take a break from using it for a little while to make sure your sinus cavities are able to restore themselves. And other things is great if you're having a cold or something. If someone has a cold and is making a lot of mucus in these areas, I do recommend several times a day, obviously, person dependent on what's going on with you. Another thing is that especially if you got a cold or something going on, there are booster kits that are out there. So you take your neti pot, you take your solution exactly as I just demonstrated, and then add a few drops of some of these solutions, which are for sale at many of these stores. Usually the solutions are like fluorescent yellow or something, and they'll of course say use the entire dropper. Especially if you're a beginner, I do not recommend the entire dropper, but maybe a few drops just so you get the idea of what's going on with it, because by and large usually that will cause tingling up of the sinus areas, and if you're still kind of getting used to the whole idea of rinsing the sinuses, then the entire dropper is going to probably be overkill. So anyway, thank you for joining me for this neti pot demonstration, and I hope it was useful for you, and take care. Bye-bye.